welcome back to Data Center News Asia. I missed the little countdown thing there because I've got the screen minimized. Terrible news today, James. I'm obviously wearing my Mexican green, but it seems that England have gone through to the next round of the World Cup.
Yeah, as an Irishman and a Welshman, of course, we have to begrudge them their victory.
Yeah, I can already hear that it's coming home chance. Hopefully the Norwegians will see to them. Who knows?
Yeah, we can always hope.
Speaking of countries who are out of the World Cup, Australia crashed out to no one's surprise a couple of games ago. They are crashing in on the data center boom. Latest news from NeoCloud Firmus. These guys are always fun for a big numbers story. 600 megawatts of energy supply agreement in South Australia. This is part of the Project Southgate, which I think was signed with OpenAI. Is that right?
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So yeah, they've, as you mentioned, 600 megawatt energy supply agreement with Gunvor Group in South Australia, which is made up of renewable energy generation, 1.2 gigs, and then at 1.5 gigawatt hours of new battery storage. So it's additionality story. What's also interesting in actually just reading through the report was Firmus has agreed to a demand response commitment under which Firmus will reduce its electricity consumption by up to 220 hours yearly when wholesale electricity prices exceed thresholds. This is pretty interesting because there's not too many of these arrangements in place to the best of my knowledge. So essentially at peak times and to control pricing, they will turn their load down.
Yeah. This demand response is exciting technology. It's normally a kind of software-based solution where you're able to read the amount of demand. It's often used by the grid operators, I should say. So when the demand is higher and lower, they can forecast more accurately. And apparently it's one of the use cases of AI is demand response. But yeah, seeing this coming from an off-taker of power, end off-taker, I guess, from grid perspective, is interesting and is a bit different. I think it's another exciting pioneering project that we're seeing in Australia. Yeah, pretty cool overall, massive battery deployment, so that'll be good business for someone as well. And yeah, when's the first stage of Project Southgate, the much touted? There's 90 megawatts is the first stage, isn't it? And that should be sometime this year.
That's the Tasmania project you're referring to. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's due to come online 2026. Is that the first? Yeah, I think it probably is. We've asked Firmus if they'd like to come on the podcast and they very politely blanked us. So maybe this will give them a nudge and they can come on and explain all this in more detail so we stop butchering it on their behalf.
To say properly, it's the Kalunga battery storage system. Another big news story from Australia. There's two more big news stories from Australia, both in different locations. So the gigawatt-scale behind-the-meter data center campus proposed in the Northern Territories. So this is up in Darwin, up in the north, where not many people live. Behind the meter is interesting because obviously we're seeing a lot of these in America. This is this kind of islanded power where you produce your own power or win your own power and it doesn't interfere with the local grid. That hasn't been the MO in Australia. Australia has been, both from a regulatory and a grid operator perspective, wanting to get people to contribute to the grid and build things there. But this is obviously in a bit more of a remote location.
Yeah, you said it's near Darwin, but 683 kilometers south of Darwin. So I was in Darwin I was in Darwin about a decade ago, and Darwin itself is a pretty small town or city, if you want to call it that. So yeah, literally in the middle of nowhere. One of the interesting things here, yeah, that the project will be supported. It's Energy North who are seemingly behind this project Ares, and they want to bring on to go alongside us 3 gigs of solar generation, and then 16 gigawatt hours of battery storage. And they also want to have natural gas as well, which I assume is just to basically keep the thing going while it's dark, would be my guess, or when there's been periods of little sun, would be my guess. But yeah, that's a interesting one.
Yes, Energy North is not just building another data center. We're building a specialized engine room for the AI economy designed to Formula One pit lane specifications. I feel like that quote was both written and conceived by AI and is pertaining to creating AI. But there you go. That's Scott Criddle, the Energy North CEO and founder. Be an interesting guest for us to have on the show at some point. And a more familiar name for regular viewers and data center veterans. Next, Australia's NEXTDC. This is S7, this is pretty crazy when you think about the typical size of the NEXTDC kind of downtown co-location type facilities, 617 megawatts, which is supposedly being pitched at Stargate.
12, did you say, right?
612, yeah. I just read the number wrong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the planning documents are now in. I was actually looking at them today. But yeah, essentially they want to build, what would be a massive campus. I think it's nine buildings across it. Can't find it in the article now, but I'm pretty sure it's 9 buildings across this development. I guess you'd call this a logistics hub or a light industrial area, but it's in now, and it's, the planning process in Australia is pretty transparent. So anyone who wants to look at the documents there, feel free to do. This has got state significance. It's a state significant development, which basically means that the New South Wales government, as opposed to local authorities, look through it and approve it. This is one which, like I said, strategically important, but they do have to get through things like the environmental impact statement, which is where I think NEXTDC have managed to navigate pretty successfully in the past, but some other developers and some hyperscalers themselves have actually fallen down at this stage. So a way to go, but it looks like this will be a significant chunk of capacity coming up.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned the permitting story there. And Australia does have a pretty robust permitting system. And at the moment, the various state governments are still quite in favor of bringing Australia on the AI journey. But another story here from, this is an anonymous developer has withdrawn an application, or rather, this was a Facebook post from the mayor of the town of North Katoomba. In a win for activism and community, the application for a data center in North Katoomba has been withdrawn, said the mayor, Mr. Mark Greenhill. But there is some, there's an engineering firm called Mac Urban behind the application, but there's no news on the development for this one, although there's some architectural drawings here.
Yeah, some pretty crude architectural drawings here, which can actually even make it look out to be a particularly large facility. I was going to run this past Sarvesh, but he is on reservice duty. I wasn't able to take my call today to clarify which development it was. I'm not actually sure, but it's similar. We had a similar story a couple of weeks ago as well, where again a local community had given out about a particular project. So yeah, interesting to see. One that I need to do a bit more work on, actually, just to figure out the details behind this one. But yeah, hopefully if the industry is not a trend we see, and hopefully the community engagement piece wins out.
Yeah, I think that there's still a good word coming from the state and federal level in terms of driving these projects forward where required. But it does a reminder to operators and developers that you have a lot of stakeholders, and your local neighbors are the ones who are most likely to give out if you do things not in the proper way. Speaking of mega projects that are being improved, supposedly, South Korea has announced almost $1 trillion, $919 billion into 3 mega projects, building, the numbers here are pretty crazy, 18.4 gigawatts worth of data centers by 2035. Ambitious plans. Where's all this breaking down?
Yeah, so that nearly $1 trillion, which is 1.4 quadrillion won, for anyone wondering. That's chip manufacturing, AI, robotics, data centers. But yeah, to your point, the numbers are pretty ambitious here. 18.4 gigawatts by 2035, 8.4 gigawatts by 2029. The actual install base in Korea at the moment, live capacity is less than gigawatts, multiple of 8. I'm not sure how you say that. Octupling. Their capacity seems ambitious. Like, I would have thought there'd be practical limitations in terms of general contractors, things like that, who would actually be able to develop at that scale. But if there's a country that's set up to do it, I guess South Korea would be putting their hand up to be one of those. So yeah, let's see what happens. It does name check a couple of the firms. Neighbor, who was it? Neighbor, SK, and GS is the ones who are seemingly pushing this project forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you dig a little deeper, this is a repackaging of a lot of the other. So there was already a 1.2 gigawatt GS data center project in Donghai and Daijin. Naver already had a gigawatt, and there's some other from SK. So yeah, I think this is like the old Amazon trick of bundling together all the numbers to make a nice, neat press release. But yeah, there's ambitious plans in Korea. I mean, we still have yet to see. I'm still waiting on Solar Seidu, so we're still waiting on some of these mega projects to actually take off. But the development ambition is there nonetheless.
Yeah, let's move to very quickly. Let's just cover the digital bridge story. So they've launched, I guess you'd call it a new operator, a new color provider in Japan with XE. So JEXE stands for, again, I read this earlier.
Japan
Anyway, it's
Extensive Infrastructure Limited.
Yeah, but basically what they've done, they've bought 2 NEC assets and will continue to serve NEC as a customer. And then they've got spare colo space, which they will, lease out essentially. So I think there's 2 assets as part of this, and need to clarify, but I would assume that there'll be plans to develop more assets. So it looks like they're going for the retail/wholesale segment at this play. Singapore, should we finish off there? We've only got 2 minutes or so left, but
Yeah.
do you want to start with Singtel or the government piece?
Let's look at the Singtel REIT. So this is Singapore Telco. Singapore Telco considers a REIT. So this is a repackaging of some of their established assets as usual in these REITs, as they tend not to take on development risk. But no, I didn't read this story till just yesterday, to be honest. So I don't know if this is going to be, because Singtel has Singtel assets, and then they're under Nextra, and then obviously it's now a part owner of ST Telemedia with KKR. So I'm not sure quite the structure of this.
Yeah, I don't think it's even got that far. I think it just mentions in its annual report, I think there was mention of capital expenditure increasing to around 1.9 billion last year to 2.3 billion in FY 2027. I think this was a comment that they said they would consider setting up a publicly listed REIT. So no firm commitment, but it does seem that a number of operators are looking at this as just, again, a way of recycling capital.
Yeah, wait for this to take a bit more form, I think. What was the other one? Sorry, I missed the government story.
It's not a huge one, but Singapore government proposes data center licensing regime. There's a new bill that's is out for public consultation, which would require those hoping to build a data center to obtain a license, essentially, from IMDA, which is Infocom Media Development Authority. So basically, anyone who's got a facility over 10 megawatts and is serving third-party customers, so cloud providers, will need a license, essentially. And it actually includes cloud service providers as well, who've got revenues of over 100 million over the last 3-year period. But yeah, basically they just need to ensure that they've got sufficient security measures for both physical and cyber attacks and business continuity plans, DR plans, etc. I think I can't think of any facilities where there would be an issue with this, but I think it's just to formalize it and just ensure that everyone is acting in the way which the Singapore government likes.
Let's take another dig at that cat photo building.
I don't even know what you're referencing there.
All right, let's wrap up the week's.
Yeah, great. Thanks everyone for watching again.